It's coming! Look at this massive elephant! This buffalo is totally staring at us. Can you believe that? We are standing right in the herd. All of this and more in our new video. After beautiful days in Uganda, we finally arrived in Kenya. But before we set off in our incredible safari in Amboseli National Park, let's go back to Uganda once again. We have already been traveling for 2 hours before we crossed the Jinja Nile Bridge. This was the first time we had seen the Nile. It was a huge trip that we had ahead of us. It's about an 18 hours drive from Kampala to Nairobi, no matter what Google Maps says. By the way, if you like our videos, we would be happy if you subscribe and like, because that helps us to make videos like this for you. Thank you very much. At the equator line in Kenya, we were greeted by a few sheep. The journey was really exhausting. The bumpy roads, the many cars, and the difficult-to-see paths. But anyways, everything went well, even on the border. It took us only 1 hour. We reached our hotel in Nairobi after 18 hours. We felt like we spent days on a cruise ship. Our bodies first had to get used to not sit in the car anymore. The hotel itself was really nice. Although there was no air conditioning in the room, the hotel facilities were really outstanding. Follow me. I'll show you what it looks like here. Let's first take a look at what the breakfast area looks like. On the right, you can see many seats. Here you can have the a la carte breakfast. They even have their own pizza oven. And let me tell you, the pizzas are fantastic. There is also a bar for cocktails, but the best part is definitely the garden area. Very cozy and perfect for relaxing after a safari. And of course, there is also a pool. We had to get up early the next day. 5 a.m. was departure time. The drive to Amboseli really did take much longer than we thought. We were on the road for a total of 3 hours and 45 minutes. The sun was rising, and we could finally enjoy the landscape a little. However, our driver and guide first made us stop at a souvenir store. To be honest, we would have much rather spent this time at Amboseli. So let's speed this up. We still had an hour to go, but this was definitely the most exciting. The view of Mount Kilimanjaro alone was incredible. Kilimanjaro is the highest peak on the African continent and rises to an impressive 5,895 meters above sea level. After a journey that felt like an eternity, we were finally here. Welcome to Amboseli National Park. A note for all iPhone owners, we could only buy tickets with an Android phone, so keep that in mind if you come here for a visit. We had a quick look at the map, and then we were finally ready to go. So let me explain how to win the game drive. To win, you have to discover the following animals: the buffalo, the lion, the elephant, the leopard, and the rhino. But bad news, no rhinos here. So in Amboseli National Park, you can win the game drive with seeing only 4 of these animals. For the first few minutes, we could hardly spot any animals, but then a wildebeest surprised us. Wildebeest, also called gnu, are antelopes of the genus Conocates. native to eastern and southern Africa. Take a look on the clear view of Kilimanjaro. Isn't that brilliant? Our game drive score was still at 0, and we were even a little disappointed for a moment. We had to slowly step on the gas, and then we got lucky. A herd of elephants, and we got closer and closer to them. Even from a great distance, we could see that the herd even included some baby elephants. Special care must be taken here, as the adult elephants are very protective of their young. The pictures we were able to take here were simply amazing. The elephants right in front of Kilimanjaro with the clearest view imaginable. It's coming! Look at this massive elephant! You can't imagine how wonderful it is to observe these animals so closely. The size and power of the elephants is really impressive. Undeterred by all the vehicles, the herd made its way through the huge grounds. And suddenly, we were right in the middle of it all, and even caught a moment when a baby elephant was briefly on the move without supervision. Take a look at how he checks whether the adults are following him. Of course, the adults were quickly back on the spot, and it almost looks as if they're telling the baby to hurry up. The herd stopped right in front of our car, and we could watch the baby elephants playing with each other. Oh, look at them. They are really cute, aren't they? Can you believe that? We are standing right in the herd. More and more elephants arrived, and we could hardly believe our eyes. We were excited, respectful, and also a little scared in the middle of the herd. We could have spent hours here watching the elephants, but we had to see more animals to win this game drive too. Nevertheless, we had to stop briefly to say goodbye to the herd. Just take a look at how many elephants there are. What a great experience. The almost 4 hours drive was worth it for that alone. But of course we wanted more. Our guide came up with the idea of driving towards Lake Amboseli. There are lots of hippos around here, and if you're lucky, you might even spot a few buffalo. What we saw first, however, was a huge number of flamingos. At this point, we will save ourselves the trouble of counting the animals. But our guide turned out to be right. The first hippo was also found here. Unfortunately, it was very far away. But if you take a closer look, you can even see more of these animals enjoying the sun. More hippos were already around the corner, eating. It always looks funny how birds take a seat on them. Speaking of birds, the crowned crane, national bird of Uganda, was also here for a visit. It was already around lunchtime, and our game drive score was still at 1. Nevertheless, it was time for a break at Observation Hill. But we didn't get there as quickly as we hoped, because we were already expected. That was pretty scary. Look at how the elephant stared at us. Now we have arrived at Observation Hill, unfortunately in the midday sun. The hike is not particularly strenuous, but let's fast forward a little. You're also supposed to be able to see excellent sunrises and sunsets here. But sorry, we were unable to check this out for you. Looks like a good run, huh? Can you see how the view of Kilimanjaro is getting worse? Once at the top, you can expect lots of information material and a fantastic view. The hill is considered a sacred place, and visitors can meet Maasai guides and rangers who share their traditional knowledge and stories about the land. But I sadly found no one to ask about the culture. Observation Hill is also an ideal spot for wildlife viewing. Visitors can use binoculars or cameras to observe animals in the distance. Let's see what we can find. Oh, look! A hippo over there! By the way, the hilltop also offers an excellent opportunity for bird watching as numerous bird species hover above it. From the other side of the hill, you have another great view from which you can see how gigantic this park is. You can see the parking lot down there. We have to go back now to still have a chance of winning the game drive. Back in the car, we got the chance to score. A group of lions came up together near a bush. Awesome! Now, only 2 are missing. In addition to the lions, we also saw a group of zebras, but they were too far away to take good photos. A problem we often had in Amboseli National Park. Our guide then took us to Amboseli Lodge. Unfortunately, this place was badly destroyed by a flood and is currently being restored. You can still see the masses of water even though it hasn't rained here for several days. Shortly after Amboseli Lodge, we were able to score again. A small herd of buffalo was sunbathing next to the flamingos. Then it went on step by step. We found a small group of southern vervet monkeys in a tree. I could really watch them all day. Funny animals. It was time to leave the national park, but we had another chance to see a huge herd of buffalo. However, one of the animals took aim at us quite clearly. This buffalo is totally staring at us. I'm just kidding. It stared at us, but it didn't seem dangerous. But never underestimate this situation, because the buffalo is not called Black Death for nothing. So guys, it's time for the final score. No leopards to see for us today, but that was a really great safari. We then went back to the hotel and relaxed for the rest of the day. It's early morning in Kenya, and I can tell you that we are glad that we booked our tickets in advance. If you don't, you may have to wait in line for an hour or longer and miss the opportunity to have the best start to a safari, as most of the animals are active at this time. You know what's funny? When I was filming, I completely missed the fact that we saw the first animal right outside the entrance. Did you see it? Let's zoom in. Funny, isn't it? So let's see how we can win the game drive in Nairobi National Park. It's very simple. You just have to see these 5 animals: the lion, the elephant, the buffalo, the leopard, and the rhino. The so-called Big 5. Shortly after the entrance, we found this shy Pumbaa right next to us. Another advantage of being one of the first in the park. We only had to drive a few meters further, enjoy the sunrise over the city panorama, and then we were able to set the first point to our game drive. Unbelievable! 2 male lions make their way through the participants of the game drive. We are always impressed on how unimpressed the animals are by the cars. For a few minutes, they just walked along and barely had a look at us. You could see that one of the lions already had a fight. The wound was quite visible. Simply wonderful. That's the reason why we go on safaris. The first few minutes were incredibly exciting. We have rarely seen such a beautiful sunrise on safari as here, and we were curious to see if we would finally see the first rhinos. Our guide made every effort to ensure that we reach this goal as quickly as possible. 2 rhinos were already waiting for us. On the 3rd game drive, we finally saw rhinos. What an incredible moment! We hadn't expected them to be so relaxed, but like most animals, they didn't care about the vehicles. One of them decided to give us a few questionable insights. They continued on their way through the park, and we were able to follow them for a short time. But then they were too far away, so we decided to move on. By the way, if you like our videos, we would be happy if you subscribe and like, because that helps us to make videos like this for you. Thank you very much. We spotted a few hippos in a small lake. In contrast to our tour on the Kazinga Channel, there were really very few of them here. While we are almost driving into another safari vehicle here, have you noticed that you can see buildings from almost everywhere in the park? This is simply because the national park is actually in the middle of Nairobi. In the early years of 1900, the area that is now Nairobi National Park was a vast savanna and home to abandoned wildlife. As Nairobi expanded, there was increasing concern over habitat loss. So in 1946, Nairobi National Park was officially established, becoming Kenya's first national park. So So what else makes this park so special? It's the only national park in the world situated so close to a major city, providing an extraordinary contrast between urban life and wild nature. Look who has become curious about us. A friendly giraffe was watching us. We tried to get a little closer to it and were very surprised at how close we could actually be. Giraffes are the tallest land animals, with males reaching heights up to 5.5 meters and females up to 4.3 meters. Their long necks alone can be up to 1.8 meters long. Each giraffe has a unique coat pattern similar to human fingerprints. These patterns help camouflage them in the wild. And did you know that they can consume up to 34 kilos of foliage daily? Crazy, isn't it? Have you ever met a giraffe? Let us know in the comments. Awesome creatures. I could watch them all day. But let's move on. We have a game drive to win, buddies. In Nairobi National Park, we had absolutely no problem seeing animals. After a short drive, one always kept popping up. Here we see a rhino with its baby. Isn't that amazing? Look at how it walks protectively around the young animal. The mother has laid down in front of the young one. Maybe she doesn't want us to continue watching the baby, but we can still see it. Look at what we found on a short break. Do you know what it is? Please tell us in the comments. The midday sun was slowly setting, and it was getting much warmer as the traffic suddenly built up on the paths. And here you can see why. Unbelievable what was going on here. We've never had this much traffic before. Everyone wanted to see the lioness. I can understand it. She is beautiful. When it's as crowded as here, it's really difficult to take the best photos. That's why we decided to retreat and continue with the game drive. The roads are clear again, and as usual in Nairobi National Park, we saw the next highlight straight away. Masai ostriches! Did you know ostriches are the fastest birds on land? Capable of running at speeds up to 72 kilometers per hour over short distances. They use their powerful legs to outrun predators. And this one poops on the recording. This reminds me of a situation earlier this morning. When they're not pooping, it's really interesting to watch them. We continued our journey. Our guide showed us a spot by a small lake. There was a small herd of rhinos here. These animals really look incredibly strong and powerful. You can also see some hippos in the background. Did you know that hippos like to stay in the middle of the lake to protect themselves from predators? One thing we really love about Africa is the fact that you can see so many animals in one place. Take a look at this. Just a few meters away from the rhinos and hippos, a crocodile basks in the sun. Just as we were about to set off, a rhino became curious and made its way to the road. It stared at us for a short while, and we couldn't really assess the situation, so we decided it was better to drive on. In such areas like this, we have always tried to find leopards in the trees. Unfortunately, there has been absolutely nothing so far. If you have already seen our previous videos, you may have noted that we have hardly seen any zebras except once from very far away. So we turned our attention to a herd of zebras and were completely surprised. It was simply amazing. We hadn't expected to see so many of them up this close. And the great thing was, they didn't feel disturbed by our vehicle at all. They even weren't at least a bit shy. It was incredible. Zebras are prominent in African folklore and culture, symbolizing freedom and natural beauty. But sometimes, their behavior can look a little weird to us. Interesting fact, in the wild, zebras typically live 20 to 25 years. In captivity, they can live up to 40 years due to better health care and absence of predators. In this situation, you can see very clearly how little the zebras are bothered by the cars. They know that there is absolutely no danger from us. Unfortunately, it was now time for us to leave the park. So let's check the score. Sadly, we didn't see a leopard and also no buffalo. The elephant was not possible because Nairobi National Park is too small for them as a habitat. But we had really nice experiences with the lions, rhinos, and lots of other animals. For us, it was definitely one of the best safaris here. Today we are on the way to the National Football Stadium of Kenya to watch the AFC Leopards play Nzoia Sugar. It was quite crowded around the stadium, and you need an M-Pesa, which is a Kenyan mobile money service to buy an entry ticket. Unfortunately, we didn't have it, as you have to be Kenyan to own it, but the people here were quick to help us. When we entered the stadium, we were amazed by the architecture. It's a stadium like the ones we used to know, far away from all the boring arenas that are always the same. Phew, wasn't easy to get a shady spot here. The game started, but there weren't hardly any highlights. The Leopards couldn't really assert themselves at the start. A lot of skirmishing in midfield, so the fans had to entertain themselves. The crowd passed the time off the pitch. The game rippled along until minute 82. The Leopards scored and the stadium went completely wild. They worshipped their players and celebrated as if they had already won. After the goal, one pyro flare after the other was set off, and the stadium was bathed in blue and white. These guys love their team. Stoppage time was already over, but the home team was awarded another corner. The Leopards could no longer be denied victory, and so the celebration continued unabated. But what came next made everyone laugh. A man was surprised by his own flair and caused the funniest situation of the day when he turned everything around him blue. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but his shoes definitely got a new color. This was an awesome experience. At the end of the game, we nearly had to take pictures with everyone, and some of the kids even wanted to touch our skin. It really was an honor. Thank you, AFC fans. We left the stadium and drove back to Nairobi for a short break. The next game we wanted to see was Kariobangi Sharks against the Nairobi City Stars. As a European, you always discover things that seem to be unusual at first glance. For example, someone driving a forklift truck on the city highway. It was only a 10-minute drive, and we arrived at the Police Sacco Stadium. As it was very warm, we stopped for a cold beer in the pub next to the stadium before the game. And to be honest, the beer was definitely better than the game. The atmosphere was also nothing like the Leopards, and the game ended in a boring 0-0 draw. Our Nairobi and Kenya adventure ends here. If you would like to see our journey to Uganda or Costa Rica, check out these videos.